just not for that, but for your back.
Yeah, I can see that one.
I've done that a few times. And like, cool. I'm so glad that's awesome.
I design my own
Yeah.
stuff patterns.
Let me wait. Sit up straight once, and let me just see if your head goes in.
I use it for parking.
Picture.
Yeah, I wanted to try parking out here in Dusty for.
Oh, really? How's it working out?
I'm really loving it.
Oh, yeah.
Only the tiniest little bit.
Where's the, oh, there's the
Yeah.
It's just so sweet.
Yeah, we can.
I don't know how to do it.
That's shocking to me. I
Yeah,
feel like
it's
I
good.
tangle things by mouth.
Yeah, I do too, but so far, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It's easy to,
So you just keep going until the block is done, and then you just let this right hang.
yeah, the red season, oh, that's why it's not. It's in the.
Can I see the back?
That makes sense in a school.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
That's
it's like I
what's
want my
honestly stopping about pricing.
in the mix with them.
Thank you.
Hey, so you just have to like move it to the next and see
Yeah,
Yeah,
that triggers my CrossFit perfection.
yeah, it's
Meaningless.
tricky. It's not, this is an amateur technique.
No, it is.
Sort of is.
No, I just care too much about like I treat thread like it costs like $5.
Yeah, that's what's better about this.
Factory
is
doesn't
you don't
matter.
have to cut concept.
Yeah.
I've been doing like
Turn it over. Probably not full coverage. Yeah, you're not wasting as much thread.
Really?
Yeah, you waste less thread.
there's all the fucking
You don't cut it.
But I'm responsible for it.
I mean, you do cut it if
Because
there's
she's in
nothing
classes
next to it. Yeah, but like, cut it. But yeah, so basically.
I still up. Making the right? Yeah, totally. I think yeah, I think it's
So I think is there a lot of confetti?
Confetti, yeah.
Classic.
The other one I'm doing, I designed myself 100%.
I did Lisa and I had it.
I actually slept really well last night, but I felt like
It's this is yellow version.
I
What's
really
That is so fun.
18,000.
I guess also I was like, okay.
I like it.
What?
Oh, the premise.
series of like, nothing catastrophic, but people get confused and like irritated, and then we just had this thing.
Oh, yeah. Tell
And I woke up like,
Oh.
yeah, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So see it better. Oh, wow. What? One of them is you go all the way in the end and then you go all the way back.
Oh, the running. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it's called.
Okay, I do that because if you recall with my background here, going spur by spur, it takes my big more thread.
Yeah.
And have that.
But for this one, I do that.
Oh.
For the other piece, I go square by square, which is the other method. I want to try it out that method.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so fun to me to have like to plan exactly where I'm gonna go, the routes, where I can trace and retrace.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm gonna pick up 3 orders of nonfiction,
I normally use
cucumber,
markup on West, so
salad,
that one's
for
like
the
that.
potluck.
I just
Get
won't
my
have it.
favorite, obviously.
I
I'm looking forward to eating that.
Yeah. Markup is
It's so
exactly.
It's so good.
But it's
I
for
took a
apples,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh.
Up in the apple.
What else am
I can't use better paper.
making candles on Saturday. And then there's also yeah, I think that's good. You want to wait a couple minutes? Should I? Oh, sure, yeah. Maybe that
I work at, you do not have, I mean, it's rare, but if you work with, like, lots of blue collar people, like, just older, you'll see it. Yeah, because it means that you are not getting enough hair, so it's a technique. And it's probably, and sometimes clothing is like not even, it just is a sign, it's like a warning sign that people don't know. Really? Do you know as a dog conversation is my favorite movie. And I so
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are we doing tonight?
Wow. Is it go time?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and joining us for this artist talk. My name is Cindy. I am on the board of directors of Cactus Plus. I also manage the artist vendor markets, and I've just floated in and out of town for a lot of my adulthood. It's a very special place for me. And I'll be in conversation with Sevan Mercy.
Hi. Yeah, this is a dear place to meet too. I've been playing shows here since I was, I don't know, like 20 years. I've known Kelsey since high school. So it's a very, very dear place to me. And it's been a big part of my creative life here.
I did not realize you were in Texas since high school.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so obviously the ITC residency, for y'all who don't know, was the first round of Cactus Club's artist residency, prioritizing disabled, neurodivergent artists, and you are actually one part of a duo, so could you talk about your little partner in crime, Bill?
Yeah, so Bill, one of the loves of my life, is sick, so he could not be here tonight, sadly. So I will do somewhat of an introduction for him and also talk a bit about our experience of collaboration, which we talked a lot about, so I feel like I can rightfully represent him. But Bill has been living in Milwaukee for about 4 or 5 years. He organized the Trans Day of Visibility Fund the last 2 years in a row and raised upwards of $12,000 for local trans folks to spend however they wish. He also has curated 2 solo exhibitions. One I think, what was it called? Erotic City, and the other one was Glory Hole, both centering topics on pleasure and anti-censorship and queerness. Cindy and I both had performances in Glory Hole, which was a 3-day wild queer extravaganza. And Bill also is a very, very strong disability advocate, and that is a focal point of a lot of his work. And for me, you wanna try introduce me, and then I can fill things in. Just for fun.
Yeah, for funsies. So
Tell me what you think.
yeah, so I feel like Milwaukee has a lot of that kind of orbit, right? Where it's like I've probably seen you guys in the room somewhere at some point, someplace. But Sev kind of entered the corner of my eye through knowing Bill, and I actually am wearing this crazy fuzzy thing because of Bill and Sev's photos for the ITC have like centaur legs, and I think that's a very good iconography for how I always found you to be like this very like mythical person. Like there's so many things that you do and you don't tell people explicitly, but you don't hide it either. And one of the first things that I'd also known about you was that Bill was like, oh, this is my friend Sev, and I had found it on social media, and I was like, oh my god, this person is lifting me amount weights in their basement, like pumping, like they are like jacked, like this person is like incredibly like powerful and like strong and like so many.
Sit up a little straight.
Like in so many senses of the word, and I would love to hear more about how
I lift weights.
I would love a visual as well at some point, but perhaps not here. But But there is so much interpersonal things that you do in your day-to-day, right? Like with your job, with like you're a parent, with the ancestral work that you do, and there's like so many other things. And I think that collaboration and working with others and being around others is already such a massive part of who you are and how you navigate the world. And I'm so drawn to the way that even with your art, right, this thing that we, in my opinion, have a little more like close agency on, you still choose that. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe fill in some of the gaps I've left out on you as a person?
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with like some of the gaps. In my day job, I work with adults who are in drug and alcohol addiction recovery, and I also do coaching and counseling work and ancestral lineage healing work and ritual work. And as you said, I'm a parent, so in almost every aspect of my life involves relationships and relating in some way, whether it's to myself or to my child or to friends, to my clients. And I think that is, whether it's like a subconscious pattern or a part of my purpose, relationships are central to who I am and how I move through the world, because I consider everything a relationship. My relationship to myself, to land, the land that I'm on, or the lands that have held me throughout my lifetime. I'm an animist, so I have relationships to spirits and to my ancestors and things like that too. So and what I've learned throughout my creative life, ever since, I was like writing, I'm also a musician, so I was writing songs in my room alone when I was in middle school, but then when I hit high school and there were other people who were pulling me out into collaboration, I really flourished. And in all of the bands I've been in, any of the success that we've had, like several records, lots and lots of tours and shows, traveling to Japan with Rio Turbo, which Kelsey was a part of. All of that was because of other people. I would never have done that alone. And when I think about collaboration artistically, when I'm alone, I have plenty of ideas, but all of those ideas are content to be unspoken. When I'm in the presence of the other and I'm allowed to respond, it creates this avenue for creative energy to be channeled in a way I just can't do alone. And that then to me becomes sort of politicized, because I feel like that in my life in general, where so much of what I do, and I'm coming to this as someone who's like a chronic I can do it myself kind of person. So I've had to unlearn a lot of that, and I experience 2 autoimmune diseases and have like an invisible disability. So there's another layer on top of that where I have even like today, I'm still learning to ask for help and to honor that space that exists between me and the other, instead of just thinking, oh, I'm alone in this. So community becomes really important because of that, and I think that flows in and out of my creative practice in a way that I can't, and I haven't been able to do in any other way. So for Bill and I, we get along so well, and the collaboration was like, it was seamless, and I consider us lucky because of that. And for both of us, we commented on how we haven't had like such good collaborators before in our lives, and I think it's because of having this shared value around the space between you and I, and like connection and relationship.
Yeah, I think that's very noticeable in how different your work is, but how well you two play together, and especially with how much time was spent with each other, right? Like, I think there was a point where you two had just like made a studio at Bill's house and were just like on top of each other, like making these massive, wonderful things. And I know there are so many ways of how you tap into community that are so different from Bill. So I also know that you two are sober, and so how does that also feed into it, right? Because Cactus Club, as many people know it, is like the bar, right? But we are so much more than that, right? Cactus Plus is, we want this to be a community space, and so I think it's really wonderful that two artists who are not naturally in these bars are finding ways of making work together and having that shared relation and just making like really incredible things. So can you talk about how that works? Like, where are you and Bill like overlapping in the Venn diagram?
Yeah. For me, being pretty much sober, Bill is like know nothing. For me, I've come to a place where I'm like, I can do a something every once in a while, but I usually choose not to. It really helps to have a purpose. So being a musician, I can come here because I'm playing a show and I have a purpose, and I can go to the green room and like be alone if I want. I think for Bill and I, we have developed a really good relationship with our sober selves, to the point where there's no fear around being able to let the creative flow come through. I believe that for a lot of folks who are struggling with getting sober, if they want to, and having a creative practice, there's this fear of like, if I don't use this substance, then I'm not going to be able to do this in the same way. Like my ideas won't come through, or I'm going to be a little more limited or inhibited. So I think that sometimes can be a real challenge. And for Bill and I, we talk about this a lot and we'll even say it kind of in a bragging way to other people that spend time with us. Like, can you believe that neither of us do drugs, with like the way we like whip each other up into this like wild frenzy of huge ideas? And it's totally possible, and I think it is made possible in community with other people who are doing the same thing. It's a lot harder to do that on your own. It can happen, but it becomes a solo struggle that isn't entirely necessary. And then I think that so there's that. So there's this like confronting the fear of what if I can't do it? And that for me is one of the more important parts of a creative practice. Is like one, you have to just do it. So at first, very first is to just start. And then second is being okay with it being totally like terrible. And when I came to terms with both of those things, I was like, oh, I can totally do this. It's okay. Like, it doesn't matter if it looks like shit. That's part of the process too. And to have a lot of compassion for self and the other, and even for like making mistakes in front of each other. And Bill, I am so grateful for Bill, because Bill is an artist in a different way. I'm more of a performance artist and musician. There's crafting things that I do, but not in a way where I ever had a specific practice around it. And through my relationship with Bill, I discovered how to have a practice, because Bill is making art almost all the time, and he can paint and he can sculpt and he works with wood. So his teaching style, it's not even really teaching, it's just like, go for it, try it, here's this tool, here's this. He like creates an environment where I was able to really flourish. And I think it worked the other way around too, where performance art is not something Bill would say that he enjoys, but I think now maybe does because of me and our relationship. And ironically, that was the first part of our residency collaboration, was a performance piece. yeah, I mean, I kind of just like ranted there a bit, but if you want to like
No, it
rein
was
in.
wonderful. It was so wonderful. Is this first performance piece you're mentioning, was that the duo piece you had at the Out There series?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, so that brings in another lesson, I think, for me, is that, so there's the, like, at first you must begin. To do not think about the quality of it and, like, whether it'll be good. Like, just absolutely you can't think of that. And then the third is that meaning can come afterwards. So through this performance, we were invited to the to Out There, which is an outdoor, I guess, festival. It's a one-day thing where different musicians and artists are invited to showcase what they do. And I played gong. This is like something that I do often as a performance piece, is like playing gong and doing different vocalizations, like spontaneous vocalizations. And we didn't have an idea beyond that of what we would do. And I can't really, it's hard to put into words how we landed on what we did. I think in the presence of the collaboration, there's this momentum that starts to develop where we get into this space of like, well, what if this? And then what? We're very like yes and people. Be like, yeah, and this, yeah, and that. And so we have this like feast of ideas that we can just pick and choose from. And we landed on making costumes. We had all of these ideas about costumes, but no forethought about symbolism or what anything was going to mean. And we both landed on a minotaur and a star. So Bill made this really amazing minotaur like headdress, and I made it like this star type ritual headdress. And it wasn't until after that any sort of meaning came through, and also in relation to, so bringing in the topic of like the other and like responding, it was audience members and their perception of what we were doing that brought in more meaning in ways that we hadn't considered. So it was me playing gong and doing this vocalization, and I was facing away from the audience, and there was like this big star with a face on it that was looking out into the audience, and then I couldn't see what Bill was doing at all, and we hadn't practiced. But we ended right at the right time. Like, there was some kind of psychic connection that we developed in this residency that showed up in a number of ways. One side note, one time I was going over to his house, and he was like, yeah, pick a tape to play, and I picked Madonna's The Immaculate Collection, and he was like, I woke up this morning and I'm like, I know Sev's gonna pick that. So little things like that. But in the performance, afterwards, people were bringing in they were making meaning. So like, oh, the star is like celestial, and you're making these like pretty ethereal, unsettling noises and sounds, and are a little more like distant from the audience. And there's Bill in this like animal form representing Earth, and which was great because we were like, yeah, we did not think about any of that at all. And also the Minotaur in Greek mythology, whose name is Astarion, which means star. So there was like little things that happen in hindsight that start to like weave in meaning. And that doesn't mean you can't go into something with like a clear idea, but I'm just putting it out there that you don't have to. You really don't have to. And I think that is something that happens naturally in collaboration.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that y'all had done that I had the pleasure of bearing witness to, and it was amazing the way that people would come up and be like, well, here's my theory, and this and that, and da-da-da, and y'all were just like, okay, like, not in that way, but in the way of like, okay, like, what these people are not realizing is that, like, they are a part of this, right? And I think that in the way that a conversation cannot happen with one person, a lot of your work coming from the background of performance, and Bill's work coming from the background of censorship, viewership, things like that, I really love the way that you two are very earnest and forward with how the audience is just as important. It's just as much of a medium as like paint or sound or anything. Was that something that you were able to explore more through your collaboration with Bill, or do you feel like you had a kind of solid foundation of that going into the partnership?
I think both. I think my version of it was perhaps different. With as a musician who's used to being on stage and like projecting my voice and my music out onto the audience who is receiving it, hopefully willfully receiving it. There's something there where it's like the audience is a collaborator, and also I'm like subjecting the audience to my will, and you sign up for it by showing up, and also like my will is being projected, and also just by being in the room it becomes a collaboration and a co-created space, because it would be different if different people were in the room and witnessing what it was I was doing. So with the particular performance that Bill and I did, it felt to me that we were playing with this idea of spontaneity and intentional meaninglessness as a way to then like give that to the audience. So it wasn't for me that I was conscious of what I was doing and how the audience was perceiving me. In fact, I don't do that at all. When I'm doing any sort of performance art, I'm not thinking about how I'm being perceived. And that is why I love it so much, because there's and it requires a certain kind of confidence to be able to do that, to do whatever like uncomfortable or silly or beautiful thing, and be like, I'm doing this because I want to do it, and you have to observe it. So I wasn't, I don't think we weren't thinking of it in that way, but it became that just because we were being witnessed. And so there's something there that's interesting to me about like witnessing and everyone's perception of what's happening, and how that then changes what it is we're doing. So whether someone talks to us about it afterwards or not, they're leaving with a certain their interpretation of what it was, and they're allowed to have that. And also art can be this thing where it's like, no, you're actually wrong. That's not what it was. It can be that too, but I think we were playing more with like what do you think it is?
Yeah, that's amazing. I know that was something with the show that Bill did for Glory Hole, about how it's kind of this ability to peer into a world that you are not a part of. And it's very interesting that you and I both got to be kind of like coworkers in that, where we were running side by side, and there were things that I was aware of, but there were places where the curtains were drawn and I could not see anything. And I'm curious how your relationship with how you filter your ideas, right? Because you were saying that you were very comfortable like letting something just be an idea, right? Just holding it in your back pocket, keeping it to yourself, but through the filtration of communicating it to someone, right? So is this person interested in what I have to say? Do I think that they can be a part of it? Do I want them to be a part of it, right? There are so many filters that a thought must be tempered by before collaboration can exist. And I wonder if this experience has made you more into like, oh, I want to work with Bill for like these specific things, or perhaps opening it up to be like, I wonder what it would be like to work with someone I like hate. Like, what would it be like to work with someone who's like even more different than me? Like, is there any curiosity in those realms?
Yeah.
hearing you say that, a few things come to mind. And one is that as much as I sometimes don't care what people think of me, I do not want to be judged or misunderstood. So I love when someone asks me about the process or asks me about what it is I just did, even if they don't understand it, even if they hate it. I love it. I'm like, if you're coming with like sincerity and curiosity, I am there for it. Like, you don't have to love it. Like, I want to know why you don't love it. So there's something there, yeah, in like the audience relationship. And another thing is that there are enough ways where Bill and I are very much alike and also very different that may make it exciting. And I would be open to working with someone who maybe there are some ways I disagree with, but I think something like that would have to be a really intentionally contained, and it would depend on what the differences are. I think that in my regular relational life, there's a lot of work I do around conflict mediation, and so much of it is people having two very different perspectives that they're really trying to get the other person to understand. And in the conflict mediation style that I'm studying, which is based on restorative justice and repair circles, is looking at the feelings underneath, not just this perspective, because perspectives are gonna be different, and sometimes we are not gonna be able to get ourselves to a place where we can fully understand the other person's. If we can, that's compassion, and that's great. But sometimes we can't. So a better, easier way in is to try to understand the feeling, or to articulate our feeling. So I like the idea, because it's in my world already, of how can I be centered in myself in the midst of someone who is very different than I am, and what does that look like?
I have no concept of time. Just a general statement.
Just to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I could talk a bit about, so being like, Bill and I both being working class artists, me being a parent, and both of us living with disabilities and being neurodivergent. So art, I have learned any sort of creative practice for me has to be a priority. Otherwise it's not gonna happen. Like, I was reflecting on how many hours I've wasted on trying to do my dishes, being like, let me just do these dishes and then I'll have like unlimited time to do this like crafty thing that I love, like to paint or to embroider or to like write a song. But then I end up getting swept away in chores. And it's because my art practice is not a priority, and that required me to get like really honest with myself about it, like, oh, I keep thinking in my mind, oh, I wish I could do this, wish I could do that, and it's like, oh, it's because it's not a priority, that's why I'm not doing it. And it becomes challenging to make it a priority when like I'm having a flare-up or experiencing fatigue and exhaustion. And so having that in mind, and also being like working full-time and parenting, a lot of my energy is pulled like outside of me, and I dream of in my mind, like what I think I need is like a week alone, and that would probably be great, but more likely the antidote is again like community and relationship, because if I am being pulled in so many ways outside of me, my task is then to decide who gets my energy. Who am I going to share it with? Who am I going to give myself to in this way? And I want more and more, and I'm practicing more and more, having that be people that are reciprocally nourishing. It doesn't mean that like my relationships are transactional, because I do give freely when I feel like I can. But it's like being mindful of how each exchange and interaction can potentially be a creative act if I don't have a specific practice. I don't have a studio. We didn't have a studio. We used Bill's house, his apartment. And there was like stuff everywhere. It was a total mess. And it was also fun and great. And we still had to work. And so just found pockets of time to make it work. But it helped because we both wanted to do it. I'm far less likely to make time to do it. Like when I'm clocked out, I'm like, no, I'm gonna sit on the couch and watch this show. But if I have someone like Bill who is wanting to create, then I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Then we can spend our free time doing this thing. So I found a lot of self-compassion for my limitations and my capacity. Like, all right, I'm not gonna be someone at this time who can give to my art practice every day. Just like with my spiritual practices, I meditate, but I don't meditate every day, and that's okay. I have a lot of like flexibility and compassion around that. And part of my spiritual alignment is like believing in surrender and grace and devotion. So if how I am posturing myself in every moment of my day, as often as I can be aware of it, if it's in a way that is like devotional, then that becomes a spiritual act. So if I'm connecting and trying, I can't do this all the time, but when I remember to do it, to engage with the people around me in ways that are seeing our relationship as a creative act, then that can also become a creative practice. And as parents, I think that we're constantly doing creative things with like meal making and playing with our children. So it's challenged me to expand my idea of what it even means to be an artist. Where before this residency, I was like, no, I'm not. And now I'm like, oh, no, I absolutely am in so many ways.
That is also wonderful. I feel like we are ready to tie it up, so I have one final question. Are you going to stick around for karaoke, and what song do you want to do?
Yes, I am going to, and my go-to is usually Rob Zombie's Dragula, so I might do that. Might be that, or maybe a surprise. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here.
Do we have time for any questions?
Oh, wait, yeah, sorry, I have no idea. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone has any question, no pressure. Or it doesn't have to be a question. It could be a reflection or anything.
I get to go first? This is awesome.
Firsthand I saw.
Thank you for being so vulnerable about being a parent. I was raised in a single mother household, and it really struck me when you said finding community helped you as a parent, and as a creative. I don't think my mom ever got to find that, as she raised 4 of us, and it was the 90s and all that stuff. But how do you think that pushed your creative endeavors and your perspective of your ability to create and connect with other people? How did that change for you, if you don't mind being maybe a little bit more vulnerable and sharing?
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm so glad you asked that, actually, because I did want to, there's something I wanted to say about that. I learned through this process, too, that it is so good for me and my child to bring him along with me. So when my friends get together to play Magic the Gathering, my kid's coming along, too. And when Bill and I would get together to work on our paper mache masks, my kid, Caspian, I'm like, you're coming with me. And it was so liberating to be like, oh my God, yeah, this is good for my kid to see me either struggling creatively to solve a problem, or engaging creatively, or having fun with my friends. My parents, no way, not at all. And so that has been huge, of being like, oh, I feel like so many parents see their kids as burdens. I'm like, no, absolutely not. it's like my kid coming with me is like it feels like I'm healing parts of my childhood where I was considered a burden and getting in the way of my parents' dreams or something like that. I'm like, no, you can come along with, like, please, like, help, like, yes, get in there. And so that has been huge. And then so to have friends who are welcoming of that, of like, yes, bring your kid. I love it. I love it so much. And to have, I think it's really important to have more all ages spaces. Like this is one of the kiddos in my life too. Oh, thank you, Artemis. Love it. This kiddo and my kiddo have known each other since they were in the womb. And so like engaging with kids too in creative practices, because they're so like brilliant, so brilliant. And that is another point of joy and advocacy for like more community. Like let's bring ourselves together with each other and like in the fullness of our lives, which might include our children, or it might include the ways that like we're struggling, or like I'm so tired I can't make dinner, and then a friend is like, I got you, like come over and have dinner with us. Like Bill and I would do that too. We would share meals as often as we could. Like I would go over to his house or he would come over to my house, and that like it's so clear to me that that's where it's at. And community, I'm like kind of going off on a tangent now. Community is kind of like a buzzword. Like we don't really know what it means. And I think a lot of it has to do with like, for me, there's circles of it. There's like the immediate people around me that I see very often, and then there's my wider community, and then there's like the circles of community that surround like interests. And in community, when it's done well, is where like we find our roles, and our roles are like weave into each other to help sustain and nurture the community. And I'm sure you all agree with this, so it's like nothing new when I say like we, and I think Bill has like a poster he made where it says we are the ones we've been waiting for, and I believe that wholeheartedly. And it's hard. It's not easy to rely on each other. It's really vulnerable, and I'm still like trying to get better with it, especially as parents. And I think there's a little inconvenience that happens too, because it means like a little more messiness, because community doesn't mean perfection. It's gonna be messy. So it means being okay with perhaps a little bit of inconvenience or a little bit of vulnerability. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Yes.
I'm just curious about two things. First of all, the residency and how you met Bill and how you started working together. Were they related, or are they? Yeah, and how the residency is bad, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Bill and I met at, there's a holiday pop-up. This was like 2 years ago, I think, at the space called Motherline in Bayview. And it was one of those things where, oh yeah, Janelle was there. Yeah. One of those things where not many people showed up, so we ended up just like sharing our things with each other. And Bill, I was doing tarot readings, and Bill came for a tarot reading and exchanged some of his prints for a reading. And some things that came up in his reading were things where I'm like, oh yeah, me too. I have that same problem. And it was like about overgiving, of like, you're doing too much, you gotta slow down. And we laughed a lot. And then after that, I had been working at Mother Lion, and the owner at the time, who's not the owner now, was gifting me a free night to use for the community however I wanted. And I was like, Bill, would you like to have a night for queer and trans folk to come use this space? Because it's a beautiful space. There's like a hot tub, a sauna, 3 bedrooms. It's beautifully curated, but it's pricey. So we were able to provide this to our queer and trans community, and we called it Vampire Blood Jacuzzi. And every installment of it also had like a different sub name, because we were wanting it to be about like rest, but in a way that didn't have any programming or itinerary. Because sometimes people are like, oh, self-care and rest, but you're gonna do journaling and you're gonna do this like physical stretching exercise thing, and then you're gonna have a sound bath, and like that's good, but also that's still a lot of planning, and I'm still like engaging with someone else's idea of what rest should be for me. So what we wanted was this like space where people could explore what rest meant for them, and how whatever that is. It's like, if you want to go lay in that room and close the door and not talk to anybody, then like great, please. And we had the rooms were separated by level of like social capacity. So like, if you were in a really chatty mood, okay, you go over here. If you're like, please do not talk to me, this is what that room is for. So that was our first collaboration, and we learned very quickly that we whip up into this crazy, like unhinged vortex of wild ideas, and it was very, very, very fun. And I think when the residency was happening, we had several friends send it to us, being like, oh, like y'all should do it. And then we're like, should we do it? And yeah, let's do it. And so you were asking about how the residency went. Do you mean more like kind of like practically, like or technically, like how?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it was, to be very honest, we were given, and transparent, so we were given $3,000, and we split it because we were the only duo, the only collaborating residents, and it wasn't enough, which, I mean, I don't think any artists that I know get paid enough, and we are both very much the kind of people who are like, all right, we're not getting paid enough to do this, but we're gonna like still make it so good. We're gonna make it so effing good because we just like have to. We can't help it, but just do everything we possibly can. And I think we had all of these ideas of what we could do beforehand, but what it became was about our friendship, actually, and our relationship to each other, and supporting each other, and like building community with each other, and supporting each other in learning more and deepening our creative practices, which was a surprise. So I think he and I are what I would call like surrendered people in this way, where we kind of like really easily go with the flow, and that's part of what makes our friendship like really beautiful, I think.
Do you have any other questions for Sev?
So thank you for giving, sharing everything. I was ran into found your exist work via the website, and I've been looking forward to coming here and both speak. So thanks. And earlier in the talk, and I don't want to misquote it, but I think you said something about you kind of learn how to have a practice from seeing Bill's practice, his physical practice. So I'm curious how maybe that translated into your work as a musician.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the questions because it makes me have to reflect on those things in ways that I might not actually be like consciously thinking of.
Can you restate the question for the folks?
Yeah, so mentioning that what I said earlier about how I learned to have an art practice by watching Bill and his like physical practice, and how that, if it has influenced my practice as a musician and performance artist. So it has influenced those things, and it's also influenced my like I'm not like a trained artist, so I don't know the word. I don't know like physical art, like painting or embroidery, like tangible art practice. So I allow myself to do more of that, or I'll do it with my kid. And because he's just so free with it that I'm like, all right, if he's doing it, then I'm going to sit down and also do it. Sometimes I can't, but I try to as often as I can. I will admit, I have not been engaging with my musical practice as much as I would like to. But it's definitely been there in my mind. And again, like talking about how it's not a priority. I'm reckoning with the fact that even though it's like one of the loves of my life, music, it has not been a priority. And so I think about that of like, why do I deny myself this thing that I love so much and that has like been in my life since I was a child and has helped me heal in so many beautiful ways and express in so many beautiful ways. And it's always like, for me, that thing that falls away, not the dishes. It's like it's this thing that's like nourishing my soul. And then because I'm like, I'm just totally like like a menace in this way. I'm like, well, but dishes can also nourish my soul, and I'm gonna make this my spiritual practice, you know. So I also then think of it in that way, which is true, but it doesn't help me get back to the to music. I do sound baths, so there's that. That's been consistent. But the performance art stuff. So with Bill's solo exhibition, Glory Hole, I did 2 performance pieces. One was a Butoh performance, which is a Japanese dance art form that explores like the subconscious in like darker aspects of the human psyche. And there's two paths of teaching in Butoh. One is more choreographed. There's like two teachers that broke off and taught in different ways. One is more choreographed, and one is not. One is like, it needs to be spontaneous every time you do it, and entirely different. And that's more of what I follow. And I've studied with Vangeline, which is a Butoh group in New York. And a lot of the movements are about allowing the impulse to do or to move arise from within you. So it's not like consciously saying, I'm going to tell my hand to close and then closing. It's waiting, slowly allowing something to happen. So I did that, and at Glory Hole. And so things like that, of like Bill being like, do whatever you want. That's all he said to me. He's like, do whatever you want. So it's not so much that like watching his practice influenced me in that way, but his like permissiveness and his general energy around giving so much love to the people he loves and to people in his community in this way that it like wants to uplift them and wants to give them spaces to be who they are. Like that's what part of what helped me like flourish in that way.
I think I saw one more hand. Did they? Yes.
Hey. I really enjoyed what you were discussing about, like, you know, you're kind of torn between like taking care of your household and your body, but then you also are like drawn to like still produce art, but then other things are taking your energy away. So I guess quickly, if you had any advice on how to kind of get yourself back into the studio when like life is calling you and other sources are sapping your energy, and just keep yourself alive, you know, what would you recommend?
Can you repeat the question really quick?
Yeah. So, advice on how to get yourself back into the studio after life is pulling you in so many different directions. For me, that's a tough one. I'm still figuring it out, and maybe there's 2 streams of thought here. One is that I am interested now in allowing myself more periods of or allowing a rhythm and like a cycle to my creative practices, where sometimes if nothing is coming, that's okay. Like if I don't want to go to the studio, that's okay. If I don't feel like sitting down to write a song, that's okay, because I know myself well enough that I know there are times where it happens. And also, so there's that, and then there's also a part of me that tries to at least plan for it. Even if I don't make it happen, I'm like, Monday nights, even when my kid is with me, we're gonna go to the like the clay studio, you know. That's another thing that came out of this, is one of the community collaborators that we worked with was yours truly, which is like a ceramic studio, and I like fell in love with making with clay, and then it's something I can bring my kid along to. So allowing there to be a rhythm to the creative practice, because it's impossible. I think like in our capitalist culture, it wants us to like push and force and force and force, and there's this illusion that we can be constantly creating, constantly outputting energy, but that's not how it works. There needs to be periods of like neutrality. I'm not taking in anything, I'm not putting out anything. Periods of like receiving, I need to be receiving, taking in, and then periods of like, okay, now I'm ready to give out. So the more that I can be conscious of those cycles in my own life and how it looks, the easier I can align my schedule with it too, of being like, all right, I know I've been doing too much, so I know that I need a period of like either receiving or a period of like doing nothing, of just neutral, like no podcasts, no audiobooks, no watching shows, like nothing is coming in, just like presence as I move throughout my day. So yeah, awareness of the cycles has been something that I'm practicing that has been helpful. Yeah.
Can I just add to, or piggyback that, within the cycle, is there anything that triggers more of a need to be in studio for you, be it internally or external?
Yeah. Usually when I like, if there's some kind of a emotional unrest, it'll either be like I don't want to do anything, or it'll be like I need to make something. So it's not always that, but that tends to like to produce some sort of energy around creating. And also when I am, I think when I'm just not stressed out, because it sounds so vague, but I think it kind of is is when I feel like I'm resourced enough in other areas of my life where I'm like, oh, I have this to give. So I don't know if it's so much like specific events that happen or situations that trigger it. It's more like where am I in my relationship to myself and like the spirits I work with, and the people around me, and also then like how is that aligning with the kind of the rhythms or the cycles that I was talking about. It might be different for other people though, you know, but that's how it shows up for me, I think.
Do we have any other questions for Sev?
Yeah, or even like comments or responses or shares. Yeah.
Just one quick memory. I'm remembering when you were Andrew WK at a Halloween cover show that we did. I don't remember who else was in the band, but it was me and you.
Adam Boss.
Wow. Yeah. One other person, but that was a good time. Formative artist experience for me. Cheers.
That's right, yeah.
Awesome. Ooh, I think I saw one more hand in the crowd.
Hi. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about like language as it relates to your artistic process, especially like if there are any times you deliberately try to exclude it, or if you think that like there's value in, you know, like letting things simmer, like just because with things like when you talk about like opening hands, like those are very, seems like a very non-language activity. I was just wondering what you thought.
Yeah, this would be a great question for Bill because I think his major was in sociolinguistics. And he uses a lot of language in his art, like words on his sculptures and art pieces in really like intentional ways, in ways that I don't. I do not.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
When this started, I'm like, if anyone decides to text me,
It's over. Call him right
speaking
now.
of language
I'm on the
being
spot.
and interrupting.
Yeah, so that's a place where we like just differ stylistically.
Yeah.
But I use it in my music and in my singing. Sometimes it's like spontaneous vocalization. Sometimes it's like lyrics. So I think that. Sorry, will you repeat the core of the question?
No, I was just because for me sometimes I find that artistic experiences or just the process of making art can be more powerful if I deliberately exclude language from it, like making a vow not to talk about it or anything like that. And I just know in music sometimes, you know, it's used as like if you feel it too much to say it, you sing it, that sort of thing, as like an extra step for language, and vocalizations from there as like an extra, like if you can't even get the words when you're singing it, whatever. So I was just.
Yeah, I think they're just different avenues of expression. Because sometimes for me, it's a lot easier to not have language around it, and a little free. There's like some liberation and freedom in it, but there also could be liberation and freedom around finding exactly the right words. It can be really, really powerful to have exactly the right words, or even glimmers of the right word, which I think is like what poetry attempts to do. Is like, how can I describe something that's like kind of indescribable, but here I'll try. And even like everything I've just said, there could be like, if I was asked in different ways, I might have a different answer. If I had more time to if I was going to write out the answers, it would sound very different than when I'm speaking it. So I think it would depend on what you allowing oneself to be okay with either finding a way to say things that might not be perfect, or being okay with exploring what it would feel like or look like to not use language in a way we're used to. Does that make sense, or touch on it at all? You could say more if you'd like to.
I think it's just, actually, do you ever use other language? Or I don't know if you know any others, but sometimes for me, something seems radically different in one language versus another.
Yeah, for sure. So I know some Armenian, and I'm trying to learn Spanish and would love to also learn Arabic. But I think that language is really beautiful in that way, where depending on the languages you know, how many you know, your brain works differently too. So, and I wish Bill was here to say more about it, because I'm someone that in my art, if I'm painting or drawing, I'm less likely to use words. I'll use words in songs. So it's it's a style thing that I'm not necessarily. That's not something I'm pulled into, but it definitely is something that he is. So I'd be curious, we could have him make a post about it or something. I feel Bill, what do you have to say about this?
No, thank you. No, you already. That's very. It's just interesting to hear what an artist thinks about it.
True. Yeah, there's some of my favorite musicians use a made-up language, Cactus twins or something.
Sorry, I don't know. Cactus twins, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot of beauty and freedom in that.
Yeah.
Or Lisa Gerard from Dead Can Dance also does that.
And hard, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Alright. Do we have any more from the audience? Okay. Well, Sev, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you for your questions. Thank you to Cactus Club and Gosha for all the time and energy you spent in helping us and meeting with us and stuff like that. Cool. Thanks, y'all.